What is up, guys? My name is Quincy Carrier, and this is a show where I take your questions and answers from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here on the show. And don't forget, if you want to ask a question here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified when I put the post up to ask for questions for this week. And also, if you want to ask questions on Twitter, follow me. The link is in the description. But without further ado, we're going to start with our first question from Omar Shanad, who says, how many starters on defense do you currently see that are set in stone? Surprisingly, not a lot. Terrence Mitchell and Greedy Williams are going to battle it out for that second corner spot. I expect Greedy Williams to start, but I wouldn't say it's set in stone. There's Denzel Ward. He's obviously going to start. Mac Wilson's obviously going to start. Myles Garrett's obviously going to start. The rest of the defensive line is kind of a question mark. We don't know what's going to happen with Larry Ogunjobi or Sheldon Richardson and how Jordan Elliott's going to come to play with camp this year, and Andrew Billings. And then Olivier Vernon is a huge question mark at this point, even if he's going to be on the team. The other linebacker positions, BJ Goodson, he's a big question mark. Same thing with Taki Taki. And then the secondary, other than the corners, so you got Grant Delpit, who's as close to a rookie lock on defense as you can get. And the other safety is probably another toss-up. Well, I think Carl Joseph is going to lock that up, but I think it's still going to be a competition he's going to have in camp. So not a lot of set-in-stone starters. His defense isn't as complete as the offense, but there are some pieces there, but we'll get into that later. The next question comes from Giants Nation, who says, what's up, Quincy the GOAT? I'm not the GOAT. My question is, if you could make a Mount Rushmore of your 4 greatest Browns players, who would it be? It'd probably be Otto Graham, Jim Brown, Bernie Kosar, Paul Brown. I know Paul Brown's not a player, but just look up what Paul Brown brought to the NFL and his contributions to the game. He has to be on a Mount Rushmore, even if it's not necessarily for coaches. He should be on it if it involves the Browns. The next question comes from C. Zachary Chad, who says, do you have faith in our current linebacking core? I don't think the linebacking core right now is the best. I think they probably should add a couple veterans off the street to get that more sewed up. I don't think it's the most important thing on this defense. I think the biggest hole on this defense still is defensive line. I would like them to add one more game changer on there, preferably Jadeveon Clowney. But, as far as the defense goes, do I have faith in a linebacking core? Somewhat. I have faith in some of the guys. I have faith in Mac Wilson. I think Jacob Phillips is going to be ready more than people think so. BJ Goodson, not a lot of faith there. Sione Takitaki, same thing there. So some question marks, some things I'm more sure about with the linebacker core, but it's definitely something to watch. The next question comes from Hunter Tosh, who says, do you think Big Ben and the Steelers or Joe Burrow and the Bengals are big threats, or do you think that this division is mainly going to be between the Ravens and the Browns? Not trying to sound super biased. I think this year is going to be very interesting and very competitive. I think there are going to be 2 teams that are going to be competing for the top of the division, and I think that is going to be the Browns and the Ravens, and I think there are going to be 2 teams that are going to be competing for a wild card spot, which are going to be the Bengals and Steelers. Now, again, the Browns could be thrown into that mix if Baltimore has another 14-2 season, because then the Browns will probably be 3 or 4 games out of 500 at that point. But do I think this is just going to be a cut battle where it's just going to be the Browns, the Ravens, and then everybody else? No, I think the Bengals are going to be a lot better than people think they're going to be. I think they're going to be a very strong, very solid team that's going to be looking ready to make their jump in the next 2 years. Pittsburgh, they went 8-8 with Duck, so you wouldn't think they would take a step back, but I don't know how Ben's going to do after no training camp or limited training camp, limited offseason, coming off an injury, and he's pretty old to be coming off an elbow surgery. I mean, he had tendons reattached. It's not good. I think Yes and no. The Browns are going to have threat to deal with the threats of the Bengals and Steelers because I don't think any of those games are easy wins at all, especially on the road. But as far as the bigger picture of things, I think it will be a battle for the division in large part between the Browns and the Ravens. The next question comes from Gabe Green-Lee, who says, if Baker gets off to a bad start next season, can you see Stefanski starting Case for a few games or even the rest of the season? It depends on how long a bad start is. Like if Baker stinks for 8 straight games next season, yeah, he's going to have to get benched, and that's going to be permanent probably, or at least to the end of the season. But if Baker starts off with 2 or 3 bad games, you can't bench him that early. That'd be too quick to pull the hook. This guy is a former number 1 overall pick, somebody who broke the rookie touchdown record in his first year. You have to let him breathe a little bit, or else you make him Alex Smith, who had his best years on another team. So again, if Baker has a bad start next season, I don't want to hear about Case Keenum. I really don't. Until it's like week 8 or 9, then we can talk about Case Keenum. But if we're talking about Case Keenum in week 4, then we already failed. The next question comes from Twitter from Mike Keeley, who says, will there be fans in the stands in the preseason games? Ooh, will there even be preseason games? Let's be honest here. Probably not. I don't see a reason to have fans in the stands for the preseason games. The NFL owners are trying to kind of get out the preseason so are the players. So it doesn't seem like there'd be great motivation to have this 4-week preseason schedule that we become used to. So I think something is going to shake there. And as far as fans in the stands, we'll have to see what happens with training camp, because they let fans in training camp. They have to let some fans in for the preseason. And I can see maybe for the last preseason game, maybe they can do a trial run of fans to see how these systems can work, if they're at that point to where maybe we can run a game at like what, 1/3 capacity for each stadium, maybe only put people in the second and third levels in the stadium and not have anybody in the lower bowl near the players. Maybe you could test that out in the preseason instead of having to deal with all the woes of implementing such a system on the first day. But I think that's something you can handle without a trial run. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be fans to start the preseason. I don't even know if they're going to televise the preseason, or the preseason is going to happen in the way that we are used to the preseason happening. I think we should be adjusting or getting ready to adjust to some very significant changes soon for the NFL. The next question comes from Billy Moss, who says, your favorite Twitter follower here, smiley face. But anyways, I think the Browns will have legitimate defensive struggles because this division's competition. What are your thoughts on this Browns defense? I'm a little worried. I don't think the defensive line has the depth that we need. I think they need to add one more piece. And I think that piece needs to be on the edge. I think somebody needs to step up. I mean, if it's not going to be Olivier Vernon, who might be the only person who's capable of stepping up, then what we're relying on Chad Thomas to anchor down the other end. I don't think that's going to be a good situation. And then you leave Myles Garrett in a situation where they could just design stuff away from Myles Garrett like they did at Texas A&M, which is going to bring his numbers down. So yeah, I'm worried about the defensive line. I think the defensive line could be one of the headaches of the season if it's not addressed with some larger signings. I think that could be the deal. The linebacking core everybody's focusing on, I just don't think linebackers are that critical to a defense anymore. I think they're kind of like the running back position of the defense. You know, the one where you can get somebody valuable in the 3rd round that can fill that role, and it's not really worth paying money for somebody like that. But yeah, everything else, because I'm not too worried about the linebackers, or as worried as everybody else is. I'm not that worried about the secondary, but the defensive line, you know, you take Myles Garrett off that line, you got nothing, really. You got Sheldon Richardson and Larry Ogunjobi, maybe. And then, you know, maybe what you can get out of Andrew Billings, but you got no edges. And I'm really worried about that. Olivier Vernon should be that guy next to Myles Garrett, but he was worse than Emmanuel Ogbah was in that role the year before, just getting paid $15 million to do it. So I do worry about the defensive line. I'm still worried about the defensive line. I've been talking about the defensive line since the season ended. The next question comes from Soldier King, who says, which position group do you feel like is the strongest to lean on offensively and defensively to start the season? Defensively, I don't have a position, but I have a player. It's called Myles Garrett. You're just going to lean on Myles Garrett to be Myles Garrett at the beginning of the season, and that's probably going to do good things. And then offensively, the position group that you're probably going to lean on is your running game. You're going to want to lean on Hunt and Chubb being back there, and your new offensive line open up a bunch of holes. Now you do have a lot. You have a lot on offense. I don't think you're going to have to specifically lean on anything, but if they do, Stefanski's history points out that they would lean towards the run. The next question comes from the NZ Takeover, who says, do you know why coaches don't adjust to their personnel? Example would be Wilkes running zone-heavy coverage when he had lockdown corners in a man defense. Now, this is an interesting question, and there could be a number of reasonings for this. Sometimes it's ego. Sometimes it's simply Steve Wilkes specializes in zone defense. That's what Steve Wilkes does really well. That's what he teaches. He teaches the zone-specific defense. That's what he has his doctorate in. So for him, it's like asking a mathematician to teach an English class. It's not his specialty. It's not what he does best. It's not what he was hired to do, right? So yeah, you can kind of blame Wilkes and you can say it's ego, but the reality of the situation is that Steve Wilkes is a zone guy. That's what he's always done. And that's what he's always excelled at. When you hire somebody who excels at the zone stuff and you don't have zone corners, you're setting yourself on the wrong foot. That's management's fault, honestly. Because I don't think it's as simple as just adjusting your personnel or like changing the play on Madden. I think it's very complicated. These things are sciences in themselves, NFL defenses. The difference between a man concept and a zone concept, sure, there can be some interchangeable elements, but, it's not just going to be that simple, where you can just plug and play and switch from zone to man or do whatever. There's a lot more going on. And I don't think it's something that you can just simply say, well, I have two guys who are good at man, so I'm just going to switch the whole system, because then you can have all kind of problems. Long story short, I think it's a lot more complicated than that, especially at the NFL level. The next question comes from Parker SC Center, who says, Sub Quincy, got a question. Who do you think will have a better bounce back year in terms of complete team impact, Myles Garrett or Baker Mayfield? Well, Myles Garrett didn't have a bad year last year. So, I don't know what's a bounce back for Myles Garrett. Again, he didn't get injured. He just got suspended. And with that being said, it's probably going to be Baker Mayfield because Myles Garrett had a phenomenal year last year before he got suspended. And with that being said, it really didn't change a ton of games. Baker Mayfield had a bad year, and it made all the difference. So if Baker Mayfield has a good year this year, it's going to make all the difference. I guarantee it. Baker Mayfield as one player can make a much larger impact to the team than Myles Garrett can. Even though Myles Garrett's impact is pretty big, it's not going to be as big as the quarterbacks. This next question also concerns Myles Garrett from Brett Norton, who says, real question, how many games did the Myles Garrett suspension cost us last year if it would have brought us above 8-8 and we still have Freddie as the coach? I'm glad that we have our new coach. Just wondering what's your opinion? I would say the Myles Garrett suspension, you probably don't lose in Pittsburgh. So I would say it's probably worth one win, guaranteed. Maybe you don't lose the second Cincinnati game. Maybe you stay alive for the playoff race a little bit longer. It's hard to say, but I would think 8-8 or 7-9 would be more realistic on what they would have ended the season if Myles doesn't do that. Maybe it would have changed the entire thing. I don't know. But yeah, it is an interesting what if to look at, especially if Kevin Stefanski works out. Then we'll be saying, in 10 years, if Myles Garrett doesn't bonk Mason Rudolph on the head with his helmet, then none of this great stuff happens. But we got to wait for Kevin Stefanski to see if he's going to work out to have that kind of retrospect. But it's an interesting question to ask. Thank you for the question. And that's all the questions for today. Thank you guys for asking. And again, if you want to ask these questions, don't forget to subscribe, ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I put the post up to ask the questions. And then also, if you want to ask these questions on Twitter, follow me on Twitter. Links in the description. But again, guys, thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.